Officials in Louisville, Kentucky are declaring a state of emergency because the prosecutors in the state are likely to announce whether a grand jury is going to press any criminal charges against the cops who busted into Breonna Taylor's home and shot her to death in the middle of the night. Now, the Kentucky Attorney General, Daniel Cameron, has presented evidence to a grand jury which would ultimately decide whether to indict any of the 3 officers involved in the shooting. Cameron would also present the result of his office's investigation into the case. Now, as of this story, as we talk about it right now, the grand jury has not reached a decision on this. There has not been an announcement, but the Louisville Police Department is concerned that depending on what the decision is, there could be mass protests. So the Louisville Police Department announced that it will restrict vehicle traffic downtown due to increased attention and activity in anticipation of the announcement, and to ensure the area is as safe as possible for those coming downtown to express their First Amendment rights. That last part is anyway, I'm skeptical of that. The department declared a state of emergency, which means all off days and vacations will be canceled and officers will be expected to work 12-hour shifts. Federal buildings in downtown Louisville have closed, and that's according to local news stations. And federal forces have been summoned to protect those federal buildings. Also, one of the cops involved in that raid, that no-knock raid, which led to the murder of Breonna Taylor. By the way, they didn't find anything in that home, no drugs, no money. He has decided to release a letter to his colleagues, and it's now being reported on. John Mattingly is one of the cops, and he is outraged that there's been any type of criticism toward the police department and the very specific cops who were there that night. Remember, they did not turn on their body cameras as they were supposed to. They also lied in order to obtain a no-knock warrant. They said that the post office had declared that there were suspicious packages going to Breonna Taylor's home. A post office inspector later released a statement saying that was not true. No one had actually said that. There was also some evidence, and we covered this in an earlier story, that the evidence at the scene had been tampered with. And I do want to read you a few excerpts from this letter, Cenk, because it will infuriate you to say the least. He says that higher ups have really failed them. For instance, in his 6-paragraph email, Sergeant Jonathan Mattingly apologized to his fellow officers and their families and said, Fisher, Public Safety Chief Amy Hess, and former Louisville Metro Police Chief Steve Conrad, quote, failed all of us in epic proportion for their own gain and to cover their asses. And so he was upset about the $12 million settlement that was paid to Breonna Taylor's family. We also reported on that story. He also says that, actually, let me pull up some more quotes. Before I do that, I want you to chime in, Cenk.
Yeah, so what a funny thing to be upset about. Like, if you got upset that your colleagues got fired, at least it's more understandable. It'd be wrong, but understandable. But first of all, other than one guy, the other 2 haven't even gotten fired. So, and that one guy shot randomly and nearly killed a baby in a neighboring apartment, and likely that's why he got fired, not for killing Breonna Taylor, because the other 2 didn't get fired at all. No, you're upset that Breonna Taylor's family got any degree of justice. What a sad, sick thing to be upset about. Now, nobody beats Louisville cops for randomly shooting into a crowd, because David McAtee was a beloved barbecue cook in Louisville, and one night after the Breonna Taylor situation, and when they were worried there was going to be protests, and in fact there were not, people had just showed up for McAtee's barbecue. Cops got trigger finger and shot randomly into the crowd and killed McAtee, which I actually think might have been even more egregious than Breonna Taylor's murder. And has there been any consequences? God knows. And the media attention is also maddening. I love that finally we're getting media attention for George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and others, but McAtee was unbelievably unjustly killed, and he gets no attention at all. So when the Louisville cops tell you that there's going to be a state of emergency, to protect the protesters. Oh, please, that's a tragic comedy, okay? No, they're far more likely to shoot into a crowd of protesters than to protect them.
So Mattingly, back to his letter to his colleagues, told his colleagues in the email that they do not deserve to be in this position, the position that allows thugs to get in your face and yell, curse, and degrade you. Mattingly also wrote that they signed up to be police officers and knew the risks and were willing to take them. But he wrote, we always assumed the city had your back. He wrote that the police do not care what race a person is or what they identify as, essentially saying that race has nothing to do with this. Mattingly told his colleagues that he's still proud to be a cop and to be employed by the department that he joined 20 years ago. And here's one more excerpt from what he wrote. No matter the ineptitude in upper command or the mayor's office, this is one of the greatest jobs on earth. With that being said, these next few days are going to be tough. They're going to be long. They're going to be frustrating. They will be a tremendous amount of stress on our families. That sentence makes no sense, but that's what he wrote. Do not let your ego get you into a trick bag. And then he advised them to de-escalate if possible. That'd be great if he actually implemented that policy during that no-knock warrant that claimed the life of an innocent person in her own home. But yeah, he just refuses to take any responsibility. He believes that he followed the law. He believes that the cops who were there that night followed the law and that they did absolutely nothing wrong.
Look, they're all gearing up because they know the cops are gonna get away with it. That's why they're saying, hey, don't get egged on by people who are upset that we got away with it again. Ironically, in a letter where he's saying this city doesn't have our back. And did you notice what he said? He could have talked about how he got shot, and that'd be fair, right? Now, as it turns out, it's because they didn't announce themselves as cops, and the guy was actually believed in his Second Amendment rights and thought he was protecting his life. But Mattingly did get shot in the leg, and so I get that he gets to be upset about that. But he said no, they let these protesters talk back to you and degrade you. Oh my God, have your feelings been hurt? And the city doesn't have your back anymore when you beat the living crap out of those people who degrade you or shoot them. And actually they're going to, and you know it, and you're still upset. The only legitimate thing is if he's upset at upper management for having them do the raid and then turning around and not backing them. Okay, that I would understand because it is the problem with upper management and the cops that they do no-knock warrants, they lie about the warrants, and they send them to houses that they have no business going into. I think that both the people who did the shooting and their commanding officers should be in trouble, not just the guys who were on the ground.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.